Mike, a massive weekend for the Notre Dame football program. I guess those of us with Notre Dame hockey were a part of it a little bit, as there was a complete section in the lower bowl that was filled in by Junior Day families, players, Mike Denbrock. You had Marcus Freeman sitting there. So we had a bunch of Junior Day folks watching Notre Dame hockey. What was your big takeaway from this massive weekend?
How about Notre Dame football and hockey, um, and an offensive coordinator? All of those things combining together, and it was not bad this time, Darren. How about that? That's the number one takeaway. So next question. No, but in all seriousness, I think while there were a couple of cancellations due to weather, the majority of the guys, 80 to 90% of the guys who were scheduled to come were able to make it up. And I mean, I was talking to a recruit from Alabama this week who told me this was the first time he got to see like real snow. Like he's seen flurries and things, but like he enjoyed that. So all in all, with the weather conditions, and I mean, last weekend it was crazy. I mean, flight delays across the country and all that stuff. Everything went well with the visit weekend. I mean, it was safe. The players who were able to visit got home safe. So that's the big thing right there, is that it was a successful visit weekend from that standpoint. And then when you dive into some of the, kind of the talking points, the headlines from the weekend, I think you have to start with the offensive line, Darren, because I think Notre Dame is starting to really put itself in a position where you have one offensive lineman committed. Notre Dame wanted to take 3 in this class, from what I was told. I think they're going to end up with 4, because it's just going to be a position where Notre Dame is just, I mean, how can you turn any of these guys down? I always feel like that's the case with Notre Dame offensive lineman recruiting. They're going to take 3, they end up with 4. They're going to take 4, they end up with 5, because of just the position they find themselves in as offensive line U. Matty Augustine from Greenwich, Connecticut, Brunswick School, not highly ranked yet. That will change, at least in my opinion. Bama, Ohio State, some big-time schools after him. He was on campus. I like Notre Dame to land him. Got Jack Lang from Missouri. Like Notre Dame to land him. 4-star across the board. Someone who's more recent to the board with the Irish, offering him just a couple months ago. He had a really good visit. Like where the Irish are at with him, and then Owen Streebig, who we've talked about a bunch, over the past, probably getting close to a year at this point. He's from Wisconsin. Now, I believe the Badgers have a new offensive line coach that's making good progress with Streebig. Streebig's visiting Miami this weekend, if I recall correctly. So he's still kind of feeling out the recruiting process, but Streebig was just at Notre Dame for Junior Day, as was Lang, as was Augustine, and I think Notre Dame lands all of these guys. And you have Streebig and Augustine both are considering Wisconsin. They have similar offer sheets, so they're actually going on visits together, which I find interesting. And they're able to kind of compare and contrast, and shared notes, if you will. And I do think that those 2 young men will end up playing for Notre Dame. So I think the way the offensive line board is trending is a note. Jeremiah Owusu-Koromoa's younger brother was on campus. This is Nathaniel Owusu-Boateng. He's another elite linebacker. I don't believe I think Jeremiah was like a 3-star kind of prospect coming out of high school. His younger half brother is not. He's an elite kind of like, top 100 player. Things seem to be going very well in that recruitment. He was a late add to the visitor list last week. So Notre Dame put itself in a good position after his visit. And then you had 11 of 14 commitments on campus. So I think Deuce Knight and some of those guys really did have a good time bonding. You have Deuce Knight leading the class. So always good to have him on campus. So that seemed to go well.
Mike, let's move along to the 2025 wide receiver board. Of course, the Irish moved on from Chancey Stuckey as wide receiver coach, and now they have Mike Brown, who's familiar with Mike Denbrock, but he comes from Wisconsin. And it sure seems like right now, Mike, that the Irish have a lot of offers out for 25 wide receivers.
Yeah, and Mike Brown has hit the ground running. He's come in and he said, listen, I know we're in a good position for guys that Stuckey and company were already recruiting. And Brown has come in and built those relationships. We'll talk about a couple of guys in particular, but he has said, like, listen, we're going to continue to offer guys that I like. Maybe some players I was recruiting at Wisconsin, or guys that I didn't maybe wasn't recruiting at Wisconsin, but we're going to go after now. So I have liked the aggressiveness from Mike Brown on the recruiting trail. But for folks watching on YouTube, just pulling up the 18 prospects that Notre Dame has offered at one point or another in the process. At the top of the board, in terms of ranking, is Jamie French from Jacksonville Mandarin High School, which is where Notre Dame is the high school that produced Chris Mitchell, Notre Dame's grad transfer receiver, who played at Florida International for a few seasons. And there's actually a relationship there, even though they weren't high school team. Maybe they were for a year, but I don't believe they were. No, they would not have been, because Mitchell would have been in the 2019 class. So, he would have missed French by a couple years, I believe. But there is a relationship there. They've known each other for a while. So Mitchell is actually giving Notre Dame a bit of an assist there. Mike Brown was at his school this week. You got Quincy Porter, who I believe Brown saw this week. He's a 6'3", 190-pound receiver from New Jersey. Talon Taylor from Chicagoland was a late add to the visit list last week. Notre Dame would love to have him. You got Dalen McCutcheon from Texas. He was a late scratch to the visit weekend, but a 5'11", 170-pounder from Texas that has visited campus multiple times. We really could spend a lot of time, because, Darren, they've offered a bunch of these receivers. I'm just looking at this list and figuring out where I want to go with this. I know this was my topic, Darren. Sean Terry is a 5'10", 165-pound slot receiver from Ohio, who the Irish offered while he was on campus this past weekend. Elijah Burris, the son of Plexico Burris, added an offer from Notre Dame January 11th. And then on the 20th for the Junior Day weekend, which was, of course, just this past Saturday, he was on campus. So that visit seemed to go very well. And there's a little bit of a Pittsburgh Steelers connection building with Notre Dame, with Jerome Bettis Jr., who I'll talk about in a second. And, of course, his dad played for the Steelers. Plexico Burris played for the Steelers. Ike Taylor played for the Steelers, and Ike Taylor's son, Ivan, is committed to Notre Dame, was on campus. So all of these guys on campus, which is interesting. Now, I talked about two guys that I feel like are trending towards Notre Dame, and that is Jerome Bettis Jr., the son of the bus. Three-star prospect offers from Georgia Tech, A&M, Missouri, Arkansas, and a handful of others. I still like the Irish to land him. And then Derek Meadows from Las Vegas, Bishop Gorman, was not on campus this past weekend. He wanted to, couldn't make it, but I got to talk to him recently. I still believe the Irish are in a really good spot for this 6'5", 185-pound receiver. Again, from Bishop Gorman, one of the powerhouses in the country. So no commitments yet at the receiver spot, Darren, but I like Notre Dame to land Bettis and Meadows. They might end up taking 4 in this class just because of the way that the class is kind of trending. Like, if they get 2 here in the spring, or let's just say in the next 2 or 3 months, they're in good position for some of these other guys. Maybe they hold a spot for someone like a Jamie French or a Talon Taylor. I don't know. It would be really interesting. But I think Mike Brown has done a really nice job, dishing out some new receivers offers, building relationships with guys like Bettis and Meadows and the other targets, extending offers to guys like Raiden Vines Bright, who has not been able to visit campus, but he's an Arizona native who is now at IMG Academy down in Bradenton, Florida. And I'm told that he's really jumped to the top of the board for the Irish. So, again, like where Notre Dame receiver recruiting is at right now. Look, Chancey Stuckey did a really good job. He was at Notre Dame. Just look at the kind of the classes that he was, able to put together in 23 and 24. And I think that Mike Brown is just going to kind of continue strong recruiting at the position for the Irish in 25 and moving forward.
And just to build on your Pittsburgh Steeler thought, we even got Jordan Clark, the grad transfer from Arizona State. His dad, Ryan Clark.
Yep.
Pittsburgh Steelers.